Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Our Driven Roads. My today's car is the Mazda CX-5. It doesn't have the turbocharged engine or the all-wheel drive system, but it has everything else. Really nice interior, all of its safety features, a premium, really good audio system, and everything else. So let's dive into it. Let's start with the exterior design. I really like it. Most important, it doesn't look big. It looks more like a lifted car, honestly. And this is how the car feels on the road as well. The refresh from the previous generation is very noticeable. Now it's in line with the newest Mazda 3, which is really nice. I really like that compact look of the car from the exterior. It looks better suited for a city or, I don't know, a daily use. I can easily see this car in New York, for example, where I've complained there's little space, but you want to maximize the amount of space you have with a good car. The lines are pretty sharp, but at the same time, it's not as flashy and into your face as the RAV4 I drove some time ago is. It's much more settled. Interior space, I think, is the place you will notice more the direction Mazda is trying to take in terms of making his brand more of a luxury or premium brand. The interior really does feel more expensive or upscale. And don't forget that we're talking about the $30,000 price range. It's not far behind from the Audi Q3 I drove some time ago. Although that one had a very flat design with its screen but the Mazda's interior still kind of makes for a classic design with the addition of newer technologies and electronics, which I think is going to age pretty well. So I really like the layout. It's pretty simple. You still have that sticking out piece of screen from the dash, but it looks fine. It doesn't look as choppy as the one in the Audis I drove in the past, so I like the way it is. As far as the layout goes, there are still physical buttons, and if you're used to the touch screen, this might be a little bit of change for you because the screen here is not touch sensitive, so you will have to use the physical buttons. You will look at first at it and you're gonna say, okay, there's only a couple of buttons. How am I gonna be using the entire infotainment system with that? It turns out they're really nicely thought out. Keep in mind that even though there are a few buttons, they have different sizes and shapes, which means that when you drive on the road, you will not have to take your eyes off the road. Those physical controls are right under your hand. So by getting used to the shape of them, you will instantly go to the right menu or execute the task you want to do without taking your eyes off the road, which is really important. And with the modern trend of going everything touchscreen and removing physical buttons, this is a really nice thing to have from Mazda. I really appreciate that. So yeah, it's pretty easy to use. For example, the navigation button. Once you connect to the Android Auto, your navigation button is gonna be the transition button to the Android Auto. So, for example, if you want to go to the car's radio, change the station, you just have to press the sound button. It'll take you to the menu. You can change the radio station or song, and then press the map button or navigation button. It'll take you directly right to the Android Auto. So it's really easy to switch between tasks without having to interfere too much with the infotainment system, which is, again, really thought out. You have parking brake, you have auto hold, which will keep the car in place at a stoplight, so you don't have to constantly keep your foot on the brake. The climate control buttons are easy to use as well. They're simple, they're physical, which I'm extremely happy about. Audio system, it's really good. I'm not joking. It's not just a logo posted on the speaker. It really works. Mazda has a dedicated menu for sound, although it's not as good as the one I had in Volvo. What I'm saying by that is that Volvo had a feature that when you accelerate or decelerate, your music is gonna keep up with the amount of noise that comes from the outside. You won't have to adjust constantly the music volume. It's gonna be done for you, which was really nice. Supposedly, Mazda CX-5 should be able to do the same thing, but I didn't notice any difference, honestly. So maybe something is not really working as advertised. But besides that, the music is really clean. There's no accent put on, bass. It's just a really clean and good audio system in here. Again, bringing that overall feel from the car to a much more premium level. The interior capacity, though, is a little bit sketchy. So, space wise, I would say I feel pretty comfortable, honestly. Those seats are not creepy, although they don't feel as flat and turbo as the ones I had in VW Passat. So, you kind of feel that you're sitting in a car seat, not on a bench. With that said, there's not much bolstering going on, so I'm probably used to more sportier car seats at this point, so but they're still pretty good. So the front legroom is decent. You have enough space. I don't think that if you are a bigger person, you will feel comfortable here, but it's still pretty decent. The back seat is where you start to notice some compromises. So compared to competitors, Mazda CX-5 has a little bit less interior space or interior cargo capacity overall in the car compared to RAV4 or CRV, and you will notice that mostly in the back seat. There isn't a ton of legroom. I cannot see behind myself. With that said, there's still a really good amount of cargo space. You can fold down the seats, but because of that reduced back seat, you'll have to pull the front seats forward to be able to fold down flat the rear seats. I'll make a brief stop at the safety features. I'm saying brief because I would say this is not the highlight of the car. Let's compare to RAV4. The RAV4 had a very, say, intrusive, I wouldn't say aggressive lane keep assist. But what I'm trying to say is that, for example, if you're driving on a highway and you're falling asleep, the RAV4 will correct your steering wheel, give you a notification and will get you back on the road. And it'll do that continuously. As you can see, the adaptive cruise control works even in heavy environments like this. Here, the lane keep assist will correct your steering position once or maybe twice before it's gonna start beeping and remind you that you should pay more attention to the road, which is fine actually. I mean, it's just something to keep in mind when driving on a highway. You will have to adjust it a lot more often than you would do in a RAV4. Alright, let's talk about engine power and transmission. The engine power is adequate, I would say. It's not punchy, but as I've mentioned in other videos, there's always a trade-off. You have to keep in mind that it's kind of hard at $30,000 to make the car that does everything well. To have a car that does everything great, you'll have to step up to Audis, Mercedes, or BMWs in $50,000-$60,000 range. And I'm talking about performance and handling and comfort, luxury, and everything else. So in this case, we're talking about the naturally aspirated 2.5 liter. So I would say the power is adequate. I don't really feel like I'm underpowered. The acceleration is not as exciting, but because of the way the car handles, because of how good the suspension is, I don't care much about engine power, but it's good enough. Keep in mind, you can have a powerful engine, but if you have a crappy transmission and a bad suspension, the engine power is not going to make much sense. So most of the time, there's a balance manufacturer had to find, if they want to find it, to make the car still somewhat enjoyable to drive and usable on a daily basis. The transmission is still automatic, which you can feel and appreciate that there's no gear hunting. It's fairly smooth. The transmission is pretty responsive. It does feel, by its logic, it feels more like a manual transmission, so I really appreciate that. And if you're somewhat a car enthusiast, but you want to have a family car for family needs without compromising too much the drivability of a smaller car, then CX-5 is a really good option for that. Alright, let's talk about the biggest highlight of this car in my opinion, and this is handling, balance, and ride quality, which is outstanding. As I mentioned earlier, the CX-5 feels like a car, a lifted hatchback. You can call it this way because of how good the suspension is. And when I say good, it's meant for city travel, for highway roads and so on. And I feel like this is the right path Mazda took, because most of the time people are driving in the city from work to work, maybe longer trips for sure, and maybe occasionally some, I don't know, I wouldn't say off-road, but whenever you have to get to a hiking trail or something like that. So this is why there isn't much suspension travel, there isn't much body roll. You can still feel that it's an SUV, it's not a small car, you know, but still you can feel that limit when you're turning into a turn right. You can still feel feedback, and you don't fear that you're gonna flip over like the sticker says. There's a good resistance in a turn up to the point where you might break your tires loose, but you are still not gonna lose control of the car. And for me personally, that's a big plus. And it should be for everyone, because normally when car enthusiasts complain about SUVs, it means that they don't like how the SUV behaves under hard inputs. Let's put it this way, which means that, for example, if you're driving at, I don't know, 40, 50 miles an hour, and an animal comes out or something pops out on the road, a car or a child or something, if you have a stiffer suspension, then there's much higher chances of you avoiding the obstacle that comes into your road. Because if you're going to turn the wheel really fast, because of less body roll, your car is going to be a lot more stable under this hard turn and be back on a road without you rolling over or, I don't know, losing control of the car. Meanwhile, if you have a bulkier, softer SUV, the chances of you starting to rotate on a road or lose control are much, much higher. So this is why normally people complain about SUVs. They're not as responsive in emergency situations. They are, but I mean, you have to pay a lot more money. The more expensive the car is going to be, chances are the car is going to have like airbags or a much more sophisticated suspension to adjust for different terrains and types of driving. For lower end SUVs, this is just a big cost that the manufacturer is not going to go for. So this is why the CX-5 at $30,000 is one of the best options in terms of handling in this price range compared to other competitors. So there you have it. The CX-5 is really good. It might be a little bit compromised on the interior space and mainly the back seat space, but as far as premium feel goes, the CX-5 delivers. I'm really glad Mazda finally updated the infotainment system. I drove not long ago a Mazda Miata, and that one still had the previous generation infotainment system, which really looked dated and old. This one looks much better. There's a really nice integration of Android Auto. It doesn't use the full screen, but the screen left is used for something else pretty useful. So overall, I see the Mazda brand, and Mazda CX-5 specifically, is a luxury brand. It does feel luxurious, and with the amount of performance you're getting with it, I don't think there's anything in this price range at this point that'll beat Mazda CX-5, unless you're going up the scale with Audi, BMW, or Mercedes. So that'll be all for today. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.